Hello, fellow mini painters. Damon here with Grim Mountain Minis, as you can see there, bringing you another tutorial today. So, what we're going to be working on today is the non-metallic metal power blade here on this Custodian Sentinel Guard. And it's something I'm really excited to bring you. I feel like I've got a good recipe for non-metallic metal swords, and that's something I thought I would never say. I have always focused on true metallic metal. I have been a big proponent for true metallic metal because I do believe that it looks better in person than non-metallic metal, and because I primarily game. Well, I like to anyway. I don't game as much as I used to, but anyways, enough about that. So I saw someone post a Necron mini a long time ago where they combined non-metallic metal and true metallic metal on their miniature. And I thought that was really fascinating. And it was something that I always wanted to replicate. So, miniature painting is art. And as artists, we should always be striving to improve ourselves. And that can look different to anyone, right? Art is subjective and personal growth is also subjective. I shouldn't say subjective, it's unique to the individual. And for myself, I've feel like I've really mastered my use of true metallic metal, and I have been recognized for that, especially for my golds. Now, with that being said, I always want to improve myself. So I started to try to find ways to fit in a skill set that I'm lacking in, which was non-metallic metal. I understood the principles of it, but my execution was never quite what I would hope it would. Now, comparison, of course, is the thief of joy, but I felt inspired by so many people who paint amazing pieces of non-metallic metal. It's truly, truly inspiring stuff. And if you are in the miniature painting hobby, whether it's on Instagram, on Facebook, or whatever your preferred social media is, you'll see amazing pieces out there. In fact, most Golden Demon winning pieces don't use true metallic metal. Everything is non-metallic metal to really show that range of artistry. So, what am I getting at? This is my long-winded way of saying that I started to pursue a method that I really liked. And once again, miniature painting is art. And art in every single way, it's either imitation or inspiration, at least at this point of the game. Miniature painting's been around for a long time, and I've only been doing this for the better part of 5.5 years. So there are people who've been experimenting with techniques far longer than I've even thought of this hobby. But of course, we take what's out there and we adapt it to our own. So big shout out for this especially to Richard Gray and Vince Venturilla and how their approaches to non-metallic metal. I learned the principles for this method from Richard Gray. He has a fantastic tutorial. Please, if you don't know Richard Gray, just get out there and subscribe to his page. He's amazing. Paints incredible minis and has fantastic tutorials. He's really shaped a lot of my style. But as I was working on a Dark Angels commission, I was researching how he painted Master Lazarus of the Dark Angels, and I really liked how he did his sword. So I've adapted that in my own technique and style, but I was very much inspired by his work, so I wanted to give credit where credit is due. And also to Vince Venturilla, his hobby cheating videos are absolutely fantastic, and he really lays out great principles of how to make metal read as metal or non-metallic metal read as metal. Words are hard today. So that's what we're going to do. I am going to get set up here shortly, and we are going to paint this sword here in non-metallic metal, but with my energy effects that I have a separate tutorial for. I can link that down in the description if you just want a pure energy effects on there, but I figured I would throw that in there too to get the whole effect. So let's buckle. All right, let's get set up here. So I've got my trusty Custodian Sentinel Guard here. And what we're going to be doing with the, also pardon my finger, I know it looks gross. I got into poison ivy, so it just looks a little gnarly, but yeah, fun stuff. So what we're going to be doing with this is establishing cold tones on that blade. The reason I'm going with cold tones is because there's so much warm tones on the Mini. Yes, we've got like some dark blue-black here on the robe on the front and on the back, but we've got red on the inside of the cloak, red on the plume, and then obviously the burnished gold and the brown leathers. So, a big thing about effective Mini painting is good contrast. We want good contrast, so we get that between brights and darks, and also hues and the temperatures of our colors. So I want to go with a nice cool tone for my non-metallic metal. You can obviously replicate this in different ways, and especially if you want warmer tones. But the big thing is that you want your base shadow, and then you want a mid-tone, and then your extreme highlight. So I'm just using, it's going to be 4 paints total for the actual blade. So for my base coat, I'm going to come in with Scale Color Necro Gray. This has been a staple of mine for a long time. Big fan of it. It's a really, really, really dark blue-gray. So if you don't like scale, you can, obviously there's plenty of other tones out there like this. One of the reasons I like it is just how matte finish it is. Even though the fantasy line tends to be a little bit more satiny than just the regular scale color. So that's going to be my shadow color. And then for my mid-tone, which this will seem pretty bright, but there's a reason for that, is I'm using Scale Color Artist Arctic Blue. Yes, Arctic, not Arctic. I always feel weird when I type it out because I think people are going to think that I'm having a big typo. So this is a really, really nice pale blue, a pale blue-gray. Get that down on the palette there. Really love this paint. I use that in conjunction with the Scale Artist Green Gray, which is another heavy body acrylic. You'll notice that I like to use a lot of heavy body acrylics, and I'll talk about why. But I use that and the Green Gray for my Dark Angels Dark Armor. Green Gray is very similar in tone to the Necro Gray, but a thing with heavy body acrylics is that they, by their nature, they're very translucent. So for establishing just a good strong base coat quickly, I'm just going with the regular Necro Gray. But the great thing about using these heavy body acrylics is, and I apologize, I don't know if you can hear that. I'm going to try and edit out the sound. Hopefully I'm successful, but the property management folks are here mowing the lawn. So anyways, this is really translucent, so it works great for glazing, which is going to be a big part of this. All right, and then for my extreme highlight, I'm going to be using Pro Acryl's heavy titanium white. Not bold titanium white, heavy titanium white. So I am absolutely in love with this paint. Bold titanium white from Monument Hobbies is really considered to be the gold standard of whites within miniature painting. I know some people prefer others, but I really, really enjoy the heavy titanium white. But it still suffers from the nature of white paints, the large pigments, so it will still come out chalky. Now, does it work better than others? Absolutely. But I picked this up through the Matte Sex Wish signature series, and this is fantastic. It's not quite a heavy body acrylic, but it behaves similar to it. It's like a midpoint between a regular acrylic paint and the heavy bodies. But if you'll notice there, it says satin, and having a satin finish helps negate a lot of the problems that we get with white paints. So really, really big fan of this stuff. Let's get that on the palette. And boop. And then lastly, what we're gonna need just kind of for the unifying, we're gonna use this as a glaze, but just to kind of tie everything together, is Black Lotus Express Paint. Once again, really, really dark blue. I love this stuff. Also, it's great for the matte finish. So now we've got our paints for the NMM and my tools here. I've got a couple. Primarily going to be working with my Winsor & Newton Series 7, number 1. But then I've got some of the Monument Hobbies synthetics, just because of the nature of heavy body acrylics being kind of thick. And also just, I don't want to use my nice Klinsky sable on Express paints. So now we've got that, let's actually get painting. Okay, now it's actually time to get some paint on the model. I'm just taking the big fat number 4 that I have here from the Pro Acryl set. I'm already realizing issues with putting my tripod on the table. I will try and stabilize as much as possible. So I'm gonna come in. I'm using this number 4 just because I want just a fast base coat. I'm not looking for accuracy. Just get it in there. So why am I using this? Well, for a few reasons. One, just going over a black primer, we don't just want to jump up to our highlight. I want to just turn this entire thing the dark blue-gray. But I'm also electing to use this as opposed to the Black Lotus because this dries faster. Great thing about the Express paints from Vallejo. Sorry, super Vermonter here. My accent is awful. Vallejo is they have a great working time, but we are obviously looking to just get something quick down. All right. So now, same thing. I'm going to, as this dries, I'm going to start thinning out my Arctic blue. So I'm just mixing some water in there. Stuff's super heavy, so you can really mix in water. But I'm going to just get my super stabilization set on so we're not getting too wiggly here. All right, so now I've got super stabilization on. I can mix to my heart's content, and I know that this will be just fine. So I'm establishing a nice glaze-like consistency. All right, gonna do what all miniature painters do, and a little bit there. This is fine because this stuff is really translucent as it is. I'm gonna come from like 2/3 of the way down and just work my way up this blade. Focus, you. I'm only focusing on the half of the sword facing my custodian here. All right, because we want contrast, right? So we've got this side of the blade, this side of the blade. This is facing down. It's not catching light reflections. I'll have to fix that mistake there. But what we do have, that's one of the reasons I love these sculpts, is we have this fuller. This thing right here. As soon as we start adding in some of our light tone to it. Oops, got a little bit in there. It's because I'm using the 4, because I'm being lazy, not want to transition on camera. We're already starting to sell the illusion here. Right, so then obviously I'm going to come over, do the other side. Put this up. Nice glaze-like consistency. If you don't know this by now, whenever you're working with glazes, and really any thin down paints, always wick off the excess on a paper towel or sponge or tissue, whatever you're using, so that it's not flooding the mini. Got this one. There we go. Start working that fuller. Boom, there we go. And my hands are shaking because I had coffee, not breakfast yet. That's fine. Come in here. Really got to get better at my video making. Much like I sought improvement for my NMM, I am seeking improvement in my filmmaking. Obviously, having a dedicated camera would be nice. So I'm just using my Samsung phone and a really cheap tripod that I picked up from Walmart. So anyways, this is the base coat down. This is what we're going to be working with, okay? Okay, so the next paint we're going to be coming in with, I'm going to use Black Lotus. I'm really going to thin this down using my number 2 synthetic. Get off the excess. And I'm going to just work and all I'm looking to do is just kind of unify what we have, this initial step. Looking to unify everything. This all makes sense here in a little bit. I know this may seem counterproductive. Trust the process. Nice thing about these express paints, like I said, is that you can really move them around while they are on your model because of the long working time that you have. So we're going to let that dry and we'll come back to it. Okay. Now that this is dried, we are actually going to start doing the heavy lifting. So I'm going to take my actual Kolinsky sable. I'm going to just thin this stuff out just a little bit more. All right. That's looking good. Wick it off. Texture. Texture is big, and that's what we're going to be establishing here. I'm going to work on this side because I think that's just going to be easier to see on camera. So just taking my pure words, Damon, Artic gray, I'm going to just start doing very thin lines. And just continue working it towards the the fuller here. No, there we go. So I'm just doing these, not even on camera, awesome. I'm just doing these little hash marks. This is the technique that I learned from Richard Gray. And it makes it look like this really, really interesting brushed metal. And this is how we're going to keep building up our texture. So what I did in the previous step was I just established a gradient, which I will reestablish, because as you can see, I'm just coming in with those pure brush strokes, but that's fine. So I'm gonna get some more of it loaded up on here. Wick off the excess. Find my good point. This series 1 is starting to show its age. And I'm going to keep reinforcing this as we move towards where the light would be catching, which we'll be concentrating up here at the tip. Which once again, Games Workshop really killed it with these sculpts. I absolutely love everything about them. Well, that's not true. I do have some problems with the overall fiddliness of some of these, and I'm going to be working on some Spear Guard next, but I've heard that really establishes that's when some of the fiddliness really comes into play. The plumes are bad on these guys, but not too bad. I would like to have seen those be a little bit more reinforced. Okay. Notice how we're getting this nice, bright, textured steel. Come in, hit up the blade. Once again, I'm off camera. I am so sorry. I said to myself after my last video, it's like, goodness, I don't know if I'm going to make another YouTube, just because I'm really struggling with painting on camera. But you're never going to get better at something if you don't do it more. Okay, so we've got this established. All right, let me see if I can get this a little bit closer so you can see what we've got here. Next, we're really going to start pushing that contrast, and this is when that non-metallic metal starts to come alive. So I'm going to come in with my white. I'm going to thin this down. Very, very thin. And now I'm really going to establish where the light is hitting on this sword. So same thing, we're going to be making our just little brush strokes. But we're just concentrating on where the light is hitting. And this is why I love this heavy titanium white. Now the great thing about being able to use this is that true whites are neutral in tone. So whether you're doing a warm tone NMM, let's say you're in like a desert area and you wanted to catch like those kind of reflections, you could do like an ice yellow for your highlight, as opposed to like the Arctic blue, and then like a brown gray for your mid-tone or shadow. Sorry. Right there. See how that looks nice and shiny? Don't worry, we're gonna blend this more. So something I learned from Richard Gray is we're also going to add in, we've been doing vertical marks, but we're going to add in some horizontals. When you get like a big value jump, it really works well too. Just kind of add in these smooth, not smooth, the horizontal lines really blend those transitions and don't make them as harsh. Everywhere the light is hitting on this part of the blade, I'm reinforcing that on the fuller and on the edge of the blade. So it's bright light, shadow, bright light, shadow, bright light. And that's a convincing way to get good NMM. I'm not going to do the bottom portion of the blade. It really does not serve a purpose. I mean, I could come in here, and maybe I will do that, just to add some visual interest, but I'll do that with like the Arctic blue. I don't want it as bright as here because the light's coming from above. It's directional. Okay. Now at that point, I want to just kind of smooth out the transitions. So I'm going to get some more of my black Lotus. Thin it down. Click off the excess, and I'm going to just come in again with that. I'll just darken this up here as well. Not, I think I will just come in with a bit of that Arctic blue just to sell that. Okay. So notice how we've got the darker big here. We've still got some reflections, but they've been toned down. But I still want to keep my blade edge bright. So what I'll do down there is I'll mix some of my heavy titanium and my Arctic blue. And if I need to glaze an Arctic blue more, I will. But that's looking good. I'm liking the effect we have established here. Okay. Now I should probably do the other side. So for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to pause it here. And then once the other side's established, we'll move forward. Okay. So both sides of the mini are good. Well, the sword. So now, let's work on the power sword. So, I'm going to use, much like my last tutorial that I did on this, pretty much the same thing, but I'm just going with these 3 paints just to replicate the effect. Streamlining it some. Heavy titanium white, I already have that on the palette. Neon green, turquoise blue. So get my neon green on here. My turquoise. My only gripe with heavy body acrylics, and honestly this is more of a me issue. It's not, it's just something I fail to do, is you've really got to clean off the threads between using them, because then they can just gunk up, and if you're not disciplined about it, then it can become problematic. So I'm gonna take my synthetic one here, just kind of thin this out some. I just want to trace my initial lightning. I'm gonna start here at the power rod. Get this thing nice and hot. It'll come along here too, where it's coming up. Zippity zappity. Just love power weapons. And I just find it really interesting that a lot of folks, these new Custodes sculpts, really aren't leaning into them as much. So I'm just tracing out initial lightning. I'll do like 2 bolts, okay? As I was saying, a lot of people with the new Custodes, I think they're just following the box art, which is fine. But they're just painting them metal and leaving them be. When this is some really cool real estate for some pretty kick-in energy effects. So, much like I did on the last one I worked on, I'm just doing 2 lightning strokes. I'm going to come across on the other side, do the same thing. Maybe we'll just change up the location of where the lightning's coming in. Zap. Zap. Oops. Apparently really struggling with my brush control today. It's because I'm making a video. That's why. And we'll do this one right here. Maybe this one will reach up further. Actually, yeah. This out just a little bit, so it's just a little bit easier to control. I may go back to using my actual Kolinsky. Yeah, I made that too wet. I'll sop that up. I might go back to my actual Kolinsky for this. These are really good synthetic brushes, but a synthetic brush is a synthetic brush. Zap. Okay. So, it's okay to be messy. Because we're just laying down the initial spots for, oh my goodness, flies. I hope they're not on film, but I live next to a dairy farm. Late summer, Vermont, dairy farms, flies. So, that's fun. Hope you can see that. Okay, zap. It's okay to be messy because we're just laying down those initial colors for the transparent fluorescents to do their work. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to my Kolinsky. An old tried and true. And I like doing my combination of electrical energy turning into plasma fire. Because what are lightning and fire are both plasmas. And it's really cool to get those on here. So I'm just getting this established. Okay. Now, let's add some color. I'll come in here and work with my snotty green. Fluorescents are just tricky to work with. That's a fact. They're absolutely amazing when you know what you're doing with them. I've been working with fluorescents shortly after I got painting, just because I'm obsessed with OSL. Thanks, El Miniaturista. So I'm just getting this down, glazing them. This is gonna be multiple coats, but I'm really just kind of setting the color here. Getting it kind of that greenish tint. Now, anytime I see just pure neon green, I think either Necrons or Deathwatch. So it's not a hue that I want in full for my Custodes. You could just go with this. It would work just fine. You would just skip the step of using the turquoise. But we've got that. That is nice and crackling looking already. I love it. Get a little bit more. And we can afford to be loose and fast here because of how transparent fluorescent paints are. It almost doesn't even show up on the black, but even if it does, that's okay because it's just lending itself to this OSL effect. Which I'm going to come in here now with the turquoise. Turquoise! Okay, yes, this is a heavy body acrylic, but it is not fluorescent. So, we're going to really thin this down because we're really just glazing this in spots. It's halfway between a glaze and a traditional coat. Just establishing some of that lighting there. I'm just kind of covering up some of this. Sorry, this will pan out here. I made this thicker than I wanted to, because that's what heroes do. Sorry, we can always fix it. Okay. Come in here. I'm going to thin this out just a little bit more. I did this the first time I was working on the other one, and I was just in my head treating it like it was the fluorescent, and I was like, oh boy, that is way thicker than I wanted it to be. It's okay, because we can always reestablish any shadows with Black Lotus, and just overlapping glazes, and we'll get some really, really nice effects. I am liking how this is turning out. This is looking good. Just gonna do some of the straight fire here. Straight fire. All right. Already almost there. Super stoked with how this is coming out. I'm just gonna retrace. I hope you can see. Retrace some lightning. This is when we have to be more careful to find that right mix of it being thin enough to control, but not too thin, where it just runs off your brush. Just reestablishing the lightning. I'm going to come in with probably just a little bit more green on the edges. But yeah, it's coming along. Yeah, that side specifically looks really cool. I'm glad we did that. This guy is menacing. So really, there you have it. Last thing I'm going to do, because I kind of messed up there a little bit, is I'm just going to, I'll take my number 2 and I'll do it with there. I'm going to take some Black Lotus, thin it down, and we're just going to smooth out this transition here. Yeah. But there you have it. I think this guy came out pretty well. I'll get a better shot here in a moment. But thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. I really, really appreciate it. I'm just a dude who likes to paint minis. I don't get paid for this. Closest thing I have is I get an affiliate link to Pro Acryl products. So I'll post that affiliate link in the description if you want to save yourself some money. Full transparency, a little bit does get kicked back my way. But it's not a sales pitch. As you can see, I'm using Vallejo, I'm using scale, and obviously a little bit of Pro Acryl because I love minis. I love painting minis. So many great manufacturers out there. And yeah, so let me get a better shot of this guy. And here we are. There's that effect. So happy hobbying.